All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're breaking down a killer strategy for some serious business growth. This is a method Alex Hormozi picked up from a top-tier private equity firm, and it's all about one thing: finding and focusing only on your absolute best, most valuable customers. So let's start with the core idea, because this is the bedrock for everything else we're going to talk about. It's not about getting more customers, it's about getting more of the right ones. I mean, the math is right there, and it's simple, but the impact, it's absolutely huge. Now, you've probably heard of the 80-20 rule, right? Pareto's principle? Well, think of this as that principle on steroids. It's a supercharged version, a key part of what Hormozi calls the value acceleration method. And the whole game is to systematically replace your low-value clients with high-value ones. Do that, and you get some crazy growth. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to walk through this in 5 parts. We'll start with the big problem most businesses have. Then we'll get into a super clear 4-step process to find your best customers. We'll look at a real-world case study, see the massive financial payoff, and then wrap up with some actions you can take, like today. All right, first step, let's talk about the single most common and most expensive mistake that businesses make, and that is accepting anyone with a pulse and a credit card. This lack of focus, it's a silent killer of your profits. And check out the difference here. It's pretty stark. On one side, you've got the accept anyone model. What does that get you? High churn, low retention, and generic one-size-fits-all service. But on the other side, you've got this selective pursuit model. That leads to high retention, premium pricing, and tons of repeat business. Same market, but the results, they're not even in the same ballpark. To really put a fine point on this, Hormozi actually analyzed a competitor. This competitor was in the same industry, making the same number of sales. But that business was making 70 times less profit. Yeah, you heard that right, 70 times less. And that's not a typo. The crazy part is, this huge difference had nothing to do with sales volume or some genius marketing trick. It was purely about who they were selling to. One business was focused, and the other, well, they weren't. So the big question is, how do you fix this? How do you actually find those golden, high-value customers? Well, it's not guesswork. There's a really clear, methodical framework for this. It's all about identifying what's called your first avatar, your perfect customer profile. The process is actually pretty straightforward. It breaks down into these 4 steps. You're basically going on a journey from data to profit. You survey everyone. You isolate your top 20%. You analyze what makes them similar. And then, and this is the key, you execute a strategy based only on what you found. Step 1 is all about getting the right data, and you need to go deep. Ask about demographics, their business stats, sure, but also their goals. And here's the really critical part. Ask about the specific trigger event that made them buy from you in the first place. That's gold. So you've got all this survey data. What now? The whole point is to boil it all down to this, your first avatar. You're hunting for just 3 to 5 key things that your absolute best customers, the ones who pay you the most and stick around the longest, all share. It takes some work, for sure, but man, it gives you an unbelievable edge. Okay, so theory is great, but let's see how this actually works in the real world. We're going to break down the gym lunch case study to see how they use this exact process to totally redefine their business. And boom, this is what they found. Their ideal customer wasn't just any gym owner. No way. It was a married guy, 25 to 45, who had already signed a lease, had at least 1 employee, and had really specific revenue numbers and goals. I mean, that level of clarity, it's like a marketing superpower. But just knowing who their avatar was, that was only half the battle. The real breakthrough, the aha moment, came when they figured out how these ideal customers were deciding to buy. They literally reverse engineered the perfect customer's journey. And when they did that, they uncovered one stat that changed everything. They found that a massive 78% of their best customers all did the exact same thing. 78% of them had watched or read at least 2 pieces of long-form content before they even talked to a salesperson. So what did they do? They stopped leaving it to chance. They built that exact journey into their sales process, on purpose, for every single lead. It's brilliant. So what was the actual payoff for all this work, for getting so focused? Well, the financial results of only targeting these high-value customers are Honestly, they're kind of insane. Just look at this chart. The average competitor in their industry had a customer lifetime value of around 6 to 8 grand. Gym Launch's LTV, over $45,000. That's not just a little better. That's a 6 to 8 times higher value per customer. We're talking about a completely different universe of profit margins. And this quote right here, it just sums up the whole lesson perfectly. The temptation is always to make it easier for people to buy, right? To lower the barrier, to get more leads. But as they found out the hard way, more leads often meant less profit. Those qualification steps are there to protect your bottom line. Okay, let's bring this all home. How can you actually apply this to your business starting right now? It really just boils down to 3 simple actions you can take immediately. Here's the playbook. First, survey your customers using those categories we talked about. Second, dive into that data and figure out the key traits of your absolute best clients. And third, use what you learned to completely change your marketing and sales process to attract more people exactly like them. And here's the final thought. This whole strategy, it feels like cheating because it's so ridiculously obvious. Instead of chasing more customers, you just focus on making your average customer worth more by only selling to the best ones. And the best part? It's a massive, overlooked advantage because almost nobody actually takes the time to do it. Look, this process takes focus. It takes the discipline to say no to customers who aren't a good fit, and that might mean taking a short-term hit on your sales volume. So the final question is pretty simple. You have the strategy now. The real question is, are you brave enough to actually use it?